Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. We finally have real basketball games that are going on. We're not doing any preseasons anymore. The season just started, and there's two games that ended up happening yesterday. And in the first two segments, we're going to be talking all about both of those games. We'll talk about the Lakers game first, as you can see by the obvious title. And then in the second segment, we're going to talk about the Celtics absolutely destroying the Knicks in this matchup. And then in the third segment, I have a little bit of an update for Joel Embiid regarding his injury and how he's not playing opening night. It's a little bit more than that, apparently. So we're going to go ahead and look at that. And in the third segment, we're going to look at some Golden State Warriors rumors and how they were supposed to acquire certain players in the offseason, but ended up not doing so. And it seems like they could possibly be like the team with one of the worst off seasons, considering what they could have gotten, but ended up being unable to get in the off season. So we're going to talk about that in the fourth segment. And then there's a special fifth segment that I reveal at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead, use the link displayed in the below the ticker on every single show segment to get your comments recognized. It's gsmcpodcast.net, or you can use Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps the show. Doesn't necessarily matter what you doesn't necessarily matter which one you do. So let's cut with this break and let's go right ahead. I'm so excited to talk about this basketball game because this is like the first game that I've legitimately watched the entirety of, and I'm incredibly impressed with the Lakers and how they started out. Now, the Lakers, they ended up winning rather comfortably in this game throughout a majority of the game. They were basically controlling it up until a little bit towards the third quarter and the start of the fourth. That was when things got a little bit closer. But regardless, the Lakers, they won rather comfortably, 110-103. They had a pure peak MVP performance coming in from Anthony Davis, 36 points, 16 rebounds, along with 3 blocks. On Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis ended up taking some shots at Rudy Gobert. And it should also be noted that Rudy Gobert, literally in the first 2 possessions of the game, got dunked on. So I just thought that was really funny how, a Defensive Player of the Year just gets absolutely ragdolled by anybody that goes into the paint. It's absolutely incredible to me. But the Lakers, again, the dominant player was Anthony Davis. The rest of the players, they played very solid. Roy Hachimura ended up scoring 18 points. Austin Reeves didn't really shoot the ball that well, but he ended the game with 12 points. And D'Lo was quite pitiful in this matchup. But that's not why the game is garnering as much attention as it is. That's the reason why it's getting a lot of attention is because LeBron and Bronny have finally done it. They have become the first father-son duo to ever play in the same NBA game in the history of basketball. That's one record that LeBron broke last night. Another record that LeBron broke last night was that now he is the league leader in most missed field goals in NBA history. He had just passed Kobe Bryant, who has been the league leader in missed field goals for quite some time. And again, this is probably a milestone that isn't going to be broken. Now, you might think that that's bad news for LeBron, but considering how he broke the scoring title before he was even able to break the most missed title, it definitely says something. So it's something that's it's not that big of a deal. Now, on the Timberwolves side, Anthony Edwards, he played really solid in this game. He ended the game with 27 points, played 41 minutes, got 6 rebounds and 3 assists as well. He went 10 for 25, though, so not entirely sure what that was all about. Julius Randle, in his first game with the Timberwolves, 16 points, 5 for 10, and let's see, DiVincenzo in his first game with the Timberwolves went 3 for 11 with 10 points. Now, the Timberwolves really, the problems with the Timberwolves that I noticed in this game was that in the first half, their offensive rebounding and their rebounding have really been poor. Obviously, with the trade with Karl Anthony Towns losing that second big man that plays in the rotation, it definitely affects your rebounding and your ability to rebound. But it didn't really seem like they were putting in that much effort to try and get the rebounds, or not as much effort as the Lakers were doing with acquiring second chance points. But at least that's just what I saw. And another key takeaway for LA in this game, the coaching was superb. Like, if you watch the game, you could see like just how much of a difference the offense was in this game as opposed to as it was in previous games under Darvin Ham. This was a huge W for the coaches, in my opinion, and really shows like that this team that previously looked like they were lost out there on the offensive side with Darvin Ham now looks like they actually have an idea of how to run an offense and the kind of shots that they want to get. It was ridiculous. It was incredible. Like, I was shocked to see how much space the Lakers actually had to operate in the paint in this system as opposed to operating with Darvin Ham. Like JJ Redick said in previous press conference, he intends on running the 5-out or their own version of the 5-out, and it went really well. There were backdoor cuts, the paint was wide open. It officially made Rudy Gobert's life all that more difficult because he was forced to go outside on the arc and try and his teammates were trying to sort of rotate over to wide open three-point shooters. Now, the only real issue for the Lakers in this game that I noticed was the fact that they weren't hitting that many three-pointers. But think of it this way. The Lakers, they held a lead for most of the game rather comfortably. LeBron only scored 16 points in this game. He got 5 rebounds and 4 assists, but it's not like he was the dominant LeBron that the dominant LeBron scorer that we saw in the Olympics and that we saw under Darvin Ham. It wasn't like the Lakers needed him in order to produce offensively, right? So they were up rather comfortably. They did not need LeBron, and they went 5 for 30 from 3. They took 33 pointers, but they only made 5 of them. And they were still able to win rather comfortably. Now, obviously it's a little bit too early to tell whether or not the Timberwolves are really just a bad team now that they don't have Karl Anthony Towns. But just off of what I saw with the Lakers, it seemed they knew what they wanted. They knew the looks that they wanted to get. They knew how to get those looks. And everything was very, very simple for them. So imagine if they actually hit their three-pointers. Like, what would that, in this game, imagine if they would have actually hit all of their three-pointers. Because, again, 5 for 30 from 3 is really, it's incredibly poor. But if they were to hit a couple of their threes, I mean, Austin Reeves went 0 for 5, D'Angelo Russell went 1 for 7, Connect went 1 for 3, and let's see, who else? Max Christie ended up going 0 for 3, LeBron 1 for 4, Roy Hachimura 1 for 4, Anthony Davis 1 for 3. So imagine if these guys collectively just hit maybe 2 more or even 3 more of their three-pointers. They could have won even more comfortably in this game. But they were still able to win, despite the fact that they were shooting this poorly from 3. It's incredible. If the Lakers shot this bad from 3 last season, then they would have lost for sure. And it was really it was a ridiculous coaching game. I really gotta say, that new offensive system. I've never seen so much wide open space for the Lakers. Like, they actually looked like an incredibly competent team. They were running screens. They were running off-ball plays. Again, 5-out isn't necessarily just isolation basketball. It's just a system that implements spacing, and you could utilize that spacing to however you choose. In this game, however, they ended up relying heavily on Anthony Davis in the scoring department, and rightfully so, because Anthony Davis was, not only was he getting to the line, but he was also able to score rather comfortably. Now, he did go 11 for 23, which in my opinion is rather solid, because again, he was taking some really difficult mid-ranges and some really difficult post moves. However, it gave him the space that he needed to operate. And what's even more impressive is that this was done more often than not on the Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. Obviously, Rudy Gobert wasn't checking Anthony Davis throughout the entirety of the game, but Rudy Gobert was on him for a significant amount of the time. I mean, that's to be expected. Whenever there's anyone in the paint, Rudy Gobert is going to go to the paint. And they were still able to dominate. Not to mention that they were also able to get some easy looks at the rim, more so than the Timberwolves were able to get in this game. So this is a huge difference, and really paints the Lakers into a new light, because if they can keep, assuming that none of the players get injured, if they can keep this offensive system up, and if they can improve on their shooting, this could be a serious problem for the Western Conference. I think that the Lakers, I know it's just off of the first game, but the Lakers, they really could shock a lot of people with JJ Redick's new scheme and with how he's coaching this team. I was very, very impressed with the amount of space and really how easily they were able to get these shots. You had a couple possessions where it was just like, okay, what are you doing here? You just wasted time. But more often than not, it was productive shot, super efficient shot after efficient shot. And that's exactly what basketball teams try to look for. None of that, whatever Darvin Ham was trying to look for. Those were hyper-efficient shots, some wide-open three-pointers that they ended up missing. So those are going to end up falling down once the season commences in its entirety and the players actually get warmed up. Not to mention LeBron James getting warmed up and legitimate and actually playing to the best of his capabilities. Because while he did score 16 points, he did also go 7 for 16 from the field. So not a very big game for LeBron, but I obviously assume that that's going to change. Or maybe this is actually the decline that we were seeing coming in from LeBron, or that we thought was going to come in from LeBron. It's shocking to say this, but 8 years ago. This might be the big decline that everybody was waiting for and that everybody was expecting for. But I don't really think so. I think this is just the first game. It's a warm-up, new coach, new offensive system. And before I do go into this break, I also want to mention how crucial the timeouts were in this game. Now, timeouts, obviously, they aren't really a lot of people might underrate or overrate timeouts. I personally think that timeouts are incredibly important, especially when a team goes on a run. When the Timberwolves were on a run and they were really making the game competitive and making the game close, JJ Redick immediately called a timeout. This was around the fourth quarter that I saw this. But if this was Darvin Ham, he would have called a timeout the second the Lakers blew the lead. And this is this is the huge difference in the coaching that I'm talking about, because Darvin Ham wouldn't have called that timeout. And if he wouldn't have called the timeout, chances are the Lakers could have probably lost this game. But he called a timeout at the right time, and they ended up getting back into the rhythm and completely shut down the comeback that the Timberwolves were making. It was an incredible win for the coaching. So enough about the Lakers, enough about talking about LeBron and Bronny. We're going to talk about the next game on this list, which is the Celtics, and they absolutely destroyed the Knicks. So we're going to talk about that right after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about the Celtics game between the Knicks and how the Celtics dominated the Knicks in this season opener. So before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show. Whether you guys have a hot take, whether you guys have a burning question, something that you've just been dying to share, we're all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. Just click on the $sign below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. If you don't want to use Super Chat, you'll see it displayed below the ticker on every show segment. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about this Celtics matchup against the Knicks. Now, the Celtics easily won this game 132 to 109, and really this game was never close. I mean, literally at the first quarter, the Boston Celtics scored 43 points compared to the Knicks' 24 points. And after that first quarter, that was when I turned off the game. I can't even lie to you, because once the Celtics hold such a dominant lead like that, there was no way that the Knicks were going to be able to come back. Like, there was just no way. Now, Jason Tatum ended this game with an incredible MVP-like performance. 37 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds. This is an insult to Steve Kerr. Like, this is what you wanted me to play 0 minutes in the Olympics? You wanted me to play 0 minutes in the Olympics? That was exactly what Jason Tatum was saying in this game, I have no doubt. Jaylen Brown also played incredibly solid, 23 points, 7 rebounds. Derek White ended with 24 points, 4 assists, along with 3 rebounds, and Drew Holiday ended with 18 points. This team played phenomenally. They almost were able to tie the record or break the record in most three-pointers made in a game with 30, but then they ended up missing like 10 straight in the fourth quarter. Regardless, the team shot 29 for 61 from 3. And when a team is shooting that incredibly well from 3, it's almost impossible to win. And, I mean, 29 three-pointers. That is an incredible amount of three-pointers, and almost a record-breaking amount of three-pointers that they ended up taking. I mean, they also, in the total of the game, they took 61 three-pointers. They are a heavy three-point shooting team. Over 30%. Actually, no, let me do some quick math here, just trying to get. So, roughly 2/3 of their shots were three-pointers. And of the three-pointers that they took, they ended up making 29 of them, which is, 29. That's like around 47% from the three-point line. And they ended up shooting 50% from the field. Like, when a team is shooting that well, taking that many threes, it's like you're not going to win. It's impossible to win unless you match that three-point percentage somehow. And, of course, the Knicks, being the Knicks, they were unable to do that. So, in this game, I mean, the key really, I know I picked the Knicks to possibly upset the Boston Celtics, but not only was I blatantly wrong, I was also rather arrogant for that take. I definitely should have known better, because looking back at it, like, this is a team, the Knicks, who essentially made a last-second move to acquire a new player and completely change the roster with Karl Anthony Towns. In the first game, going up against a team that won the championship and a team that has already played with each other, winning the championship hasn't changed for the most part in the offseason. It was rather arrogant for me to pick the Knicks as opposed to the Celtics, because the Knicks, they still have to find their identity with Karl Anthony Towns. Meanwhile, the Boston Celtics have already established their identity and already know how to do this, how to do that, how to run their systems. Acquiring new players, which the Knicks ended up doing in the offseason, like Miles Bridges and recently Karl Anthony Towns. It's not Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges, excuse me. There's 2 M Bridges in the NBA. I apologize. But acquiring Mikal and acquiring Cat is definitely going to sort of affect your team at the start of the season, because you're still trying to figure things out, especially with Mikal. Mikal in this game, I don't think he made a single shot in the first half, which was really poor shooting. However, he ended the game going 7 for 13 from the field, which isn't really that bad, ending with 16 points. But once the Celtics went and got that huge lead, the rest of the game was just garbage time for the Knicks. And you're not going to beat the Celtics when they have a huge lead like that. Like this shooting from Bridges should have been happening through the first quarter and continuing on in this game. If it wasn't, how should I say this? If it wasn't because of his shooting, I think the Knicks would have made this game a little bit more competitive. But again, like the Celtics, they just were not missing from three. They were locked in on this, and I'm a little bit afraid now because they do have a very solid chance of repeating, and I didn't think of this sooner, but Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they probably had the worst offseason for championships, for champions. Like, usually whenever a team wins the championship, its players, they get all of this praise. They get all of this recognition for actually winning the championship. But the Celtics, not so much. Everybody was clowning the Celtics most of the time, especially throughout the offseason. I mean, Jaylen Brown was getting clowned because he did not get picked for the Olympics. Jason Tatum was getting clowned because he wasn't playing in the Olympics for a lot of the times. And all of this, it's just fuel to the fire just to encourage the Celtics to repeat and do it again. So congratulations, fans. You guys just gave these players another reason as to why they should repeat and go back to back. And if they win the championship in the end, it'll be on you. It'll be on all of those people that were just making fun of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for not playing in the Olympics and all of the backlash that they got in the offseason. Because while I absolutely despise the Celtics and despise that organization with my heart, I fully gave them the respect that they needed for winning the championship. It didn't matter that I didn't like them. It didn't matter that I didn't want them to win the championship. They earned that respect by getting over the hump and being able to do what everyone thought they were unable to do in previous years. And that demands respect. But obviously, there are a lot of fanatics out there that would completely disagree with that take. And to that, I say, congratulations, you just gave them another reason to try and repeat. Now, whether or not you think they're going to repeat is a whole different story, but everyone else seems to think they're going to repeat based off of just how dominant this roster is and how incredible the starting lineup actually is for this team. Now, for the Knicks, Jalen Brunson, he had a rather quiet 22-point game. He went 9 for 14. McBride actually played really well in this game. 22 points, 8 for 10. Bridges, as I mentioned before, 7 for 13, 16 points. Karl Anthony Towns went 5 for 9 with 12 points, 1 of 2 from 3. And Josh Hart went 4 for 6 with 12 points. Now, it's not like these guys really played bad, but it's just like that first quarter really, really killed them. And it was really just the Celtics making way more shots. Like, it was staggering the amount of three-pointers they were able to make. And maybe this is a sign that the Knicks need to start taking a couple more three-pointers. Maybe this is a sign that some of these players have to start scoring a little bit more. Because I'm actually kind of surprised that Jalen Brunson didn't take the liberty of taking more shots than he did. But that's besides the point. Obviously, this is a whole new team. They're still trying to find their identity. So I wouldn't really say this loss really cripples them because, again, still got to find their identity. But this is a pretty solid start if you're a Boston fan. Makes total sense. I was incredibly naive at picking the Knicks. I don't know why I didn't pick the Celtics to win this game. But I guess, hindsight is 20/20. And really just OG Anunoby, he played 34 minutes, but he only recorded 4 points. And on top of that, he was not the X factor in stopping Jason Tatum in this game. I mean, he had a true shooting of 91% and 14 for 18 from the field, 8 for 11 from 3. That is just incredible shooting from Jason Tatum. Not to mention Derek White, who ended up going 6 for 10 from 3 and 8 for 13 from the field. Like, just a dominant game all around from the starters and the Boston Celtics. So that's all that I really have to say about this game. And I'm very excited that the NBA season is starting now. It's great. I actually have things to look forward to. It's amazing. And especially the Lakers game, because I am so looking forward for this for the Lakers and their season under JJ Redick. But I'm very excited for the games that are going down today as well. So that's all that I really have on the second segment. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into the third segment where I talk about Joel Embiid and him being out on opening night for actually tonight's game between the Bucks and the 76ers. So I'm going to talk about that right after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we're going to talk about Joel Embiid and opening night for him. We already know that, or at least I already know, and I already confirmed it before, that Joel Embiid and Paul George, they aren't going to be playing in the opening night for either teams. They're Paul George still suffering that injury, and I guess the 76ers don't really want to risk injuring him on opening night because that would be like the talk of the town, without a doubt. If Paul George gets hurt in the opening night, everybody's just going to laugh at the 76ers. And Joel Embiid, surprisingly, is going to end up sitting, well, actually, unsurprisingly, is going to end up sitting out as well due to an apparent injury. Now, this is just, according to Larry Brown Sports, this article, this is an unwelcoming start for the 76ers. If you are a 76ers fan, this is definitely not how you want to start the season. So, Shams ended up reporting on Tuesday that Embiid won't be playing at all in opening night, but then he later reported that he won't be playing at all for the week. For the week, Joel Embiid is not going to be playing. So that means he's going to be missing the opening night for the Bucks, which is today, and he's going to end up missing Friday's game against the Raptors in Toronto on Friday. And let's see. What other games do the 76ers have? Do they have a back-to-back? No, they don't. And I don't know if he's going to miss the game on Sunday, but already that's 3 games that Joel Embiid is going to miss. And because he's injured. What a shocker, right? So this report happened earlier. So this obviously includes the Milwaukee Bucks opener, but Shams adds that the former MVP is progressing well and ramping up to scrimmages, but still is not quite ready yet. And this is absolutely ridiculous. I have no idea what exactly happened with Joel Embiid in the off season or even in the preseason games, but it's like, this is getting absolutely absurd. I mean, we already know that Joel Embiid isn't going to be playing in back-to-back games, and now here he is not even going to play for the whole week. Like, what kind of malarkey is this? And I have to say that word because the word that I want to say I can't say on air, but it's like, this is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, already the 76ers are dealing with injuries. How are they going to maintain this throughout the rest of the season? I think that's really the big question in this for the 76ers going into this game and going into this season. Because, I mean, he hasn't even played an official game yet, and he's already going to miss an entire week. Like, what kind of soft malarkey is this? Again, I can't say the word that I want to say on air, but again, this is just ridiculous. Now, Embiid, he missed most of the preseason for the 76ers with what the team called left knee injury management. Whatever in the world that means. It's unbelievable. Like, I'm so shocked at the fact that, let's see, he was limited to 39 games during the 2023-24 season after suffering a left meniscus tear in late January that required surgery. That said, however, Embiid was healthy enough to play in Paris for the Olympics and ended up averaging 11 points in 16 minutes per contest and starting at center in 5 of the 6 games during the Olympic play. Now, 30 years old, he's often injured, and he recently made a staggering statement about managing his future workload, saying that he wasn't going to be playing in back-to-back games. And the management will apparently begin with missed games for Embiid on Wednesday, Milwaukee, Friday against Toronto, and possibly even Sunday with Detroit, according to this article. So, again, this is just soft. This is incredibly childlike. I don't understand why he's just choosing not to play now. And the reason why I say it's childlike is because his style of play encourages him to continue to get injured every single time. And let me go off my rants. Manzano's in the chat saying, I'm going to say this, and Laker fans are not going to like it, but I think you guys got lucky the Timberwolves had no chemistry and no heart that game, and you guys took advantage of it. And I don't think that happens the next time you play Minnesota. I think they blow you guys out. Yeah, that is just an absolutely egregious take right there. The Lakers ended up shooting 5 for 30 from the three-point line, and they still ended up winning. They did not need LeBron in this game, and they still ended up winning. There was no luck involved in this win. Not to mention the fact that the Timberwolves, they were actually making this game close towards the end up until JJ Redick called that timeout. And it's way too much of a coincidence that JJ Redick calls a timeout the minute the Timberwolves start to mount a comeback, and the Lakers immediately stop that right there. There was absolutely no luck involved in that game. And if anything, the Lakers, they had some really, really bad shooting luck in this game. Losing to a team that goes 5 for 30 from the field is just unacceptable. Not to mention the fact that the Lakers almost doubled the Minnesota Timberwolves in points scored in the paint, which is something that the Minnesota Timberwolves just weren't doing for some reason. There was no luck involved. Absolutely no luck involved. And I do understand your argument saying that the Timberwolves, they don't really have the team chemistry and they weren't playing with heart, but whose fault is that? Like, whose fault is that they weren't playing with heart? It's not a luck type of thing to play with heart. It's not a luck type of thing to almost win this game and then end up not being able to win it because a coach actually calls a timeout and it makes the adjustments. Like, not to mention the easy looks that the Lakers were actually able to get in this game. There was no luck involved in this win at all. Bronny was playing in this game. There was no luck involved in this game. Like, come on now. You can't just say that, given how the Lakers actually played in this game. Not to mention the fact that Rudy Gobert was getting absolutely ragdolled in the paint by Anthony Davis and getting dunked on by Roy Hachimura in the first 2 possessions of the game. There was no luck involved. Like I said before, imagine if the Lakers actually hit just a couple more three-pointers. Again, 5 for 30 from 3 is very bad, and they still were able to come out with this win. And imagine if LeBron actually played like LeBron. Instead of going 7 for 16 from the field, probably scoring around 25 points. There was absolutely zero luck involved in this game. They made a big trade in the middle of the preseason, and they got those players at the end of the preseason. Again, still don't see how there was no luck involved in this win. Like, you can say that's a team chemistry issue. There was no luck. Like, there's none of that was here in this game. And I mean, you could say that the Lakers were ending up getting you might think that the Lakers were at the line a little bit more, but that wasn't true at all. The Timberwolves ended up shooting more free throws than the Lakers in this game. Meanwhile, they were also able to hit more three-pointers than the Lakers in this game as well, going 13 for 41 compared to the Lakers 5 for 30. The Lakers were just able to get more efficient shots in the paint, and they were able to consistently get open looks. There was no luck in this game. There was no luck involved. This was all just a W win. This was a W for the coaches. Now, back to Joel Embiid. He's 30 years old, injury riddled, and obviously he's going to take a little bit of time in order to come back healthy for the 76ers. Again, I think it's all just I really think this is just a bunch of soft, unnecessary things that Joel Embiid is doing. I understand, like, missing one game of the week, sure, but missing all three to open up your season, that is just not a good look for Joel Embiid, and that's not a good look for the 76ers. Like, I understand trying to keep him healthy is, like, priority number one, but a big reason why he can't stay healthy is because of his style of play. He always flops. He always over-exaggerates his falls. He always lands awkwardly, and, like, in order to further exaggerate his falls. And it's just, his play style does not encourage a healthy lifestyle and a healthy playing. Like, it just doesn't. I mean, I don't understand why Joel Embiid doesn't realize this and why he doesn't amend this. But again, this is how he scores a majority of his points. Just going down to the paint and just flailing around and then just landing on his back or landing on the floor. Like, again, landing on the floor constantly at his type of mass, it's not ideal. And it's not something that can be sustained long term. So maybe his play style has got to change. But chances are his play style is not going to change because it works so well. And Manzano's in the chat. You give all the coaching credit to JJ, or your scheme on defense and offense was more towards your assistant coaches and JJ. I'm confused by that. I gave JJ credit because, the new offensive scheme that they have in place for the Lakers and how they're running this offense is way more, like, you could clearly see the difference between JJ Redick as the coach and Darvin Ham as the coach. Like, the team looks confident and competent under JJ Redick. Now, furthermore on the 76ers and Joel Embiid, Manzano says, this is why I laugh when I hear the 76ers fans saying that if Joel Embiid came into the league during the prime of Shaq, Mutombo, and Yao, he would dominate them straight away. Yeah, you saw me in the last video segment. Like, I laughed uncontrollably with that take because it's just absolutely egregious. His style of play is incredibly soft, and not only that, it also encourages injuries. Like, that's one of the things that's incredibly underrated about him. Like, that is overlooked, I should say, about him. His play, while it's effective and while it does work for him, not only does it not work in the postseason, but it enables him to get injured in the postseason. It's really just it's bad. It's not good. And considering how he's not even going to play in the opening night or the opening week, which is shocking to me, is just like, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. There's no reason why he should not be playing an opening night. And I can understand Paul George. He recently suffered an injury, but Joel, not at all. This is just absolutely ridiculous and incredibly soft, in my opinion, from him. But let me know what you guys think about Joel Embiid, what you guys think about this decision in the comments. But aside from that, we're going to go ahead and go into the fourth segment talking about a really interesting Warriors rumor and how they were supposed to get this player, how they were supposed to get that player, and how they were going to acquire this player in a trade and in several other off-season moves. So we're going to talk about that right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned if you're interested.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment, of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we're going to be looking at the Warriors rumors going into, that was going on in the off-season and was later revealed apparently by Draymond Green, and how they were supposed to get this player, how they were supposed to get that player. And Manzano's in the chat asking, are people overblowing the amount of power LeBron has in the league, where even if his son is not performing well in team stats, he can get him to win the Rookie of the Year? Again, I don't think that he's going to win Rookie of the Year just based off of his play. I do think that there is a chance that if he does play well, it's going to overshadow a lot of other rookies that are also playing well, if not better than Bronny. So really, I do think that it is a possibility. I'm not going to be naive and say that LeBron has absolutely no input in it, but I have no idea, obviously. But again, LeBron won't have any input on the voters directly. However, the attention that Bronny is going to get because he's playing on the same team as LeBron, his father, it could possibly boost a lot of voters into thinking, okay, or like boost the thought process that Bronny is going to could win Rookie of the Year if Bronny plays well. Like, that's really the big thing. Bronny has to play well. And if he does play well, it could overshadow other rookies like Zach Edey or even Reed Shepherd, who I expect to win Rookie of the Year and could also play well. So that's really like where the LeBron effect ends up taking place, even when other rookies are performing well and their teams are in the playoffs. Okay, first of all, playoff success and whether or not your team is in the playoffs, it doesn't matter for Rookie of the Year. I'm tired of that misconception. A lot of people, they thought that Chet was going to win Rookie of the Year because his team was in the playoffs. Well, guess what? His team was in the playoffs because they had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was second in the voting for MVP. Not because of Chet. It's a team success kind of thing. There's no such team record should not have any sort of impact in Rookie of the Year whatsoever, and it hasn't, because Victor, without a doubt, was the clear-cut best rookie in that entire draft class. He won the award unanimously for a reason, and team record had absolutely nothing to do with it, as the Spurs were one of the worst teams in the NBA last season. So forget the team record, forget the teams that are in the playoffs. That's a team accolade. You need one player, and one rookie wasn't the end-all be-all for the Oklahoma City Thunder in that previous season. So forget that take completely. Next question. Those rumors going around that the Warriors were going to get Jimmy Butler from Miami, I did not actually hear about that. I think those were just actually, no, I did hear about that now that I remember that. That was just a rumor, but that's not what I'm talking about in this segment, or that's not what I aim to talk about in this segment. So, according to this article, which I'm going to start looking at right now, Slater outlines that Dunleavy got Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and head coach Steve Kerr involved in the recruitment of Paul George, who was on board with the idea of, let me just see here, picking up his player option for the Clippers and then getting traded over to Golden State. However, the Clippers decided they'd be better off not taking on significant salary in a trade with the Golden State Warriors. So that deal ended up fizzling out. So there's obviously some fading frustration within the organization about the failed pursuit of Paul George, according to Slater, who says that the Warriors may argue the Clippers underestimated their chances of losing the forward for nothing in free agency. So this was not only was this bad execution from the Golden State Warriors, but this was even worse for the Clippers, because like, they're worried about salary. Meanwhile, they just ended up letting one of their best players walk for nothing. They got nothing in return. And that's almost a worse look than having to deal with the new NBA salary cap rules. So not only that, the Warriors also had a subsequent pursuit of Utah Jazz forward Lauri Markkanen. And he was viewed as sort of a plan B after missing out on Paul George. And Slater says that it was actually part of plan A and that the Warriors initially wanted to land both players. So the conversation was always about that possibility, at least according to Draymond Green, and that's what he said. Quote, "You get both of those guys, you make a huge splash, but the Clippers weren't really willing to play ball." Then Jazz CEO Danny Ainge was being Danny Ainge. That's what Draymond Green said, end quote. So nothing that I had to say about that. Now, the Warriors, they had hoped that they'd be able to acquire George while preserving enough assets to meet Ainge's asking price for Markkanen, as Slater explained, and they still were talking to Utah about Markkanen after striking out on Paul George, but at that point, Dunleavy felt it wasn't the right move for the team to go all in for the Jazz forward. And Kerr said that Mike is very sensible. He just said to me, "It doesn't make sense to sell your entire future for a team that you think can be pretty good but isn't awesome, right? Especially at this stage with the ages of our stars." And here's more news out of Golden State. The Warriors, they also apparently spoke to the Timberwolves about the possibility of Karl Anthony Towns being traded before he was dealt from Minnesota to New York, and at least league sources tell Slater. However, the Wolves targeted a specific Knicks package that the Warriors couldn't really replicate. And despite striking out on top trade targets this summer, the Warriors are high on the players that they added: Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, and DeAnthony Melton. But really, this is sort of a really big missed opportunity coming in from the Golden State Warriors, and how they were able to acquire not one, not two, but three all-NBA talented players. Well, not maybe all-NBA, but all-star caliber type of players. They could have had at least two of them on the roster, and they ended up failing in acquiring all of them. So this is really just like, I'm very surprised that they didn't end up landing this deal, and that they were unable to sort of make ends meet with not just Paul George, but with Lauri Markkanen as well. Like, the fact that the Utah Jazz ended up signing Markkanen to that huge extension, I really think this is just what in the world are we doing here kind of moment, right? Like, I mean, the Utah Jazz, I understand they're trying to rebuild their roster and they're trying to build around Lauri, but I don't really see Lauri Markkanen as a number one option on a championship caliber team. I definitely do think that the Warrior system and him being on the Warriors would have been a very, very solid tandem, and a very solid, would have made the Warriors a little bit more of a respectable roster, considering how the Warriors, they have so many guards in the roster and not enough forwards. They do have forwards, but it's not as tall as Lauri Markkanen or as effective as Lauri Markkanen, not a very deep forward or center-based lineup. So adding Lauri Markkanen and giving up a couple of pieces, like a couple of their guards, I really feel like would have been a very solid addition for the Golden State Warriors, and would have made them and put them in a much more respectable position than they're in right now. Then again, I could be completely wrong, and the Golden State Warriors just start making every single three-pointer that they take with Steph, Buddy Hield, and every other player that they have on their roster. But again, it's like this trade, if it would have went through, would have made this team way more respectable, in my opinion. So that's all that I really have going into this segment. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the fifth and the final segment, where I give my predictions for every single team that's going to be playing tonight and who I think is going to end up winning in each game. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we're going to be doing some predictions. There are tons of teams that are going to be playing tonight. There's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games that are going to be going on tonight. Obviously, not all of them are going to be televised, but I'm going to give my predictions for all 10 of these games and which team I think is going to prevail in for their opening week and their respective games. So we might as well start off with the easy one, the one that's going to be televised on ESPN, the 76ers going up against the Bucks. I think the Bucks are going to end up coming out in this game. Now, I do know I've made my criticisms about Darvin Ham, and I made my criticisms about Doc Rivers, who are going to be the most amazing, fantastic coaching duo that has ever been seen in NBA history. Obvious sarcasm. But really, I mean, with Joel Embiid not playing in this game, and with Paul George also not playing in this game, I don't really think the 76ers have much of a chance. Now, they do play at home, which is really like the only advantage that they have against the Milwaukee Bucks now. Because, I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's going to do Giannis Antetokounmpo things. Damian Lillard, we'll see if he's in shape for the season, and we'll see if he actually sort of adapted to the system that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to run. I mean, we'll see. The Doc Rivers system and the Darvin Ham system is really, it's quite pitiful. But again, I don't really think that's going to matter in this game. I don't think coaching is going to matter. I think the overall peak performance coming in from Giannis and Dame is what's going to matter, and they'll end up overpowering the 76ers in their matchups. Now, maybe Maxey is going to go off in this game, but I don't really see that happening, and if so, I think Giannis is going to be able to match in that production. So if Maxey scores 30, I think Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to finish with 32, and so on and so forth. But again, we'll see, because Maxey does end up taking more three-pointers than Giannis Antetokounmpo. So if he ends up making a lot of those three-pointers, then there's a pretty good chance that they... Well, I still don't think it's a pretty good chance that they'll end up winning due to the star power of Dame and Giannis Antetokounmpo, but we'll see. So for that game, I picked the Bucks to win easily. Now, some of the other games that aren't going to be nationally televised, we have the Nets matching up against the Atlanta Hawks at 7:30. I think the Hawks are going to easily win this game with the Nets. The Nets are going to rebuild this season. They're a rebuilding team, and this is not only do they have a whole new roster, well, not really a whole new roster, but they don't really have a definite star on the team. And I think that this is the year where they're going to tank. And, they're purposely going to start losing all of these games. Now, I don't think that the tank isn't going to come until maybe much later, but I still think that the Atlanta Hawks are going to end up prevailing in this game. They're going to get Trae Young. He's going to play good. They have home field advantage. They're also 6.5-point favorites in this matchup, and I don't really think I don't really think that the Nets really have much of a chance in this matchup. Just based off of, I understand that the Atlanta Hawks are not really the best of teams, but they do still have Trae Young. We get to see how well Zachary is going to end up playing in this game, if he does end up playing in this game, the number 1 pick in the draft. So we'll see exactly how he'll progress and how well he's going to play. And who knows, maybe he could end up winning Rookie of the Year. He is the number 1 pick after all, but we'll see. Not entirely sure. So I have the Hawks winning in this game. Now, let's see, what should be the next game that we cover? The Pacers going up against the Pistons. I think the Pacers are easily going to win this game. The Pistons last year, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA, and I don't really expect that to change whatsoever for the Detroit Pistons. Now, maybe they surprise me. Maybe they end up winning opening night. They do play at home. They still have Cade Cunningham. He's a very solid option. But again, the Pacers and their offensive firepower, it's just, it's really, really difficult to stop. At the same time, however, the Pacers and their defense it was lackluster throughout last season. So regardless of that, I still think the Pacers are going to end up winning this game rather comfortably. But if the game is close or if the Pistons somehow prevail, I really wouldn't be all that surprised, because when you have a team like the Pacers who are potent on offense but less than mediocre on defense, anything is possible because they rely heavily on the three-point shot. They could end up missing a lot of their three-pointers, and there's a possibility that they let up a lot of easy baskets for the Pistons, thus allowing the Pistons to end up winning the game in the end. But still, I have the Pacers as favorites to win this game. Next game is a Florida matchup between the Miami Heat and the one and only Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. So I think the Magic are going to end up winning in this matchup. I have some huge faith in Paolo Banchero, and the Orlando Magic actually ended up getting better throughout the offseason. Now, actually, you know what? I take that back. I'm going to learn from my mistake from the previous day about how I ended up picking the Knicks to win as opposed to the team that has already played together and has already established their identity. I'm going to pick the Miami Heat in this one. Now, it's going to be a close game. I do think it's going to be a close game. But the Miami Heat, they don't really, I understand KCP is a very solid player, so there is a possibility that the Magic come out and win. But the Heat, they already have the chemistry that they've established with the team. Jimmy Butler is going to be playing in this game alongside with Bam Adebayo. And while the Magic, they do have Paolo and they have Franz Wagner, and KCP is a very solid option as well, along with Jalen Suggs, who was a defensive caliber player and one of the best defending guards that the league has. I don't really think that the Magic are going to end up winning this game just because of the fact that it's going to be a new roster going up against a roster that has already played with each other. And while they didn't make it that far in the postseason, a big reason why they didn't was because they did not have their best player. So I'm going to pick Miami in this one, in this intense Florida matchup, and possibly a future playoff matchup. Who knows, depending on how the rankings and the seedings go. Next game is the Cavs going up against the Toronto Raptors. Now, this one I am a little bit uncertain of. Now, Cleveland is 6.5-point favorites, and I do have to give, I do agree with that. I do think that Cleveland is going to end up prevailing in this game, but I do think it's going to be a really close battle. And part of that is because I don't really have that much faith in Garland, and I have a lot of faith in Scotty Barnes and his ability to play, but I do think that the Cavs overall as a roster, they're a much better team than the Raptors. And while the Cavs didn't necessarily improve over the offseason, they still were able to keep a lot of their main players. Now, the one concern that I do have is if there's going to be any more Cavs drama throughout the offseason. Because if you guys remember, throughout a majority of the offseason, like about half of my segments were Cavs drama, because it was like every single week there would be something new going on with the Cavs. It was like Darius Garland wants to get traded. If Donovan Mitchell's going to sign a contract, then Darius Garland wants out. Maybe the Cavs are going to end up blowing up the roster. Maybe the Cavs are going to have to pick between Donovan or Darius Garland. Maybe the Cavs are just going to rely on Evan Mobley and trade away Donovan and Darius Garland. It was so much unnecessary stuff that I was just unexpecting, and it was like unnecessary in my opinion. And in the end of the day, they ended up re-signing all of their players anyway and still have the same team that ended up making the postseason. So I think the Cavs, I'm assuming there's still no drama and that all of that drama was actually real. I think the Cavs are going to end up prevailing in this game. Next is the matchup between the Pelicans and the Chicago Bulls. Now, I'm not really that high on the Bulls, even though they just acquired Lonzo Ball. This is going to be a rematch with Lonzo Ball's former team after missing like around a year or two due to injuries. And really, I think the Pelicans, they're going to end up prevailing in this game. They got Zion, they're gonna have DeJounte Murray, they're gonna get CJ McCollum. I expect a big game from CJ in opening night and a pretty solid game coming in from DeJounte as well. However, I will say that the Bulls, they will make this game a little bit competitive due to the lack of rim protection that the Pelicans have. Like, the Pelicans don't have a definite rim protector or a solid center that I feel could match up with Vucevic. But again, the Bulls didn't really, you could argue that the Bulls didn't really get that much better losing DeMar DeRozan. They will have Zach LaVine in this game from what I know, and Alex Caruso is an incredibly solid defender as well. But again, I don't really, oh wait, no, excuse me, they don't have Alex Caruso. That's my bad. I completely forgot. Alex Caruso's on the, is not even on the roster anymore. That's my bad. I actually meant to say that Giddey was on the roster. They do have a very solid offensive option in Giddey, and his assist numbers, regardless of what he does off the court. I'm not really going to talk about that, even though you guys know exactly what he did off the court. He's a pretty solid player on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll see. New environment. We'll see how he plays, see if he blossoms into a player. For personal reasons, I don't want him to. But we're going to move on from that. Next is the Houston Rockets going up against the Charlotte Hornets. I think the Houston Rockets are going to end up prevailing in this game. The Hornets, they weren't one of the best teams last year. They do have LaMelo Ball, so that's one positive coming in for the Hornets. I think they're going to have him for this opening game. There was no report saying that he was going to get injured. I'm going to go ahead and check just to be sure. Let me see. Yeah, no, he's apparently from what I hear, he is good to go for this game. He was good to go for the Knicks game, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I don't think he's hurt. So, but regardless of that, if he was hurt, if he is hurt, if he isn't hurt, I think the Houston Rockets, they are just a much better team. They got Sengun. They also have Shepherd, who's going to I expect Reed Shepherd to have a pretty solid game, but again, he is a rookie, so if he doesn't have a solid game, it's not going to surprise me. But Sengun is really going to take this team to the next level, and he's really going to, I think he's going to have a very good game against the Charlotte Hornets, a team that I don't think has that dominant of a rim protector, in my opinion. Now, next matchup, the Jazz, they're going up against the Memphis Grizzlies. I have Memphis winning in this game. They're going to have John Morant, they're going to have Zach Edey, and they're still going to have the competent roster that they've usually had. The big reason why they were so bad last season was because of injuries and because that John Morant was out in the beginning of the season due to his off-the-court problems, as well as an injury later on in the season that sidelined him for the rest of the season. So, but aside from that, assuming that Ja doesn't get hurt in this game, I do think that the Grizzlies are going to end up prevailing and beating the Jazz because I'm not all that high on the Jazz. Now, they do have Lauri Markkanen, but again, I'm not a big fan of Lauri Markkanen as the number one option on a team. Don't really see them winning out in this game. And finally, the last game that I'm going to talk about, and the game that's going to be televised, the Clippers, they're going to end up playing the Phoenix Suns in this matchup. As you guys know, Kevin Durant going up against James Harden, former teammates, now enemies in the Western Conference, as well as former teammates in the Eastern Conference, and then enemies in the Western Conference. They were teamed up with each other for a little bit of their career, not throughout the entirety of their career, but for a little bit they played with each other. But regardless, I think that the Phoenix Suns are going to end up prevailing in this game. And Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, meanwhile, the Clippers, they only really have James Harden. I don't think there's going to be any sort of matchup. If they had Kawhi, then the story would be a little bit different. But because they're not going to have Kawhi in this game, I think the Phoenix Suns are going to have no problem. There is no real competent perimeter defenders that they have that will be able to slow down Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal at the same time. Even if Bradley Beal doesn't have a good game, I'm expecting an incredibly solid game for Devin Booker as well as Kevin Durant. I expect Kevin Durant to have at least 24 points and Devin Booker to have at least 23, maybe along with like 7 assists as well, and Bradley Beal with a really solid 20-point game. Like, those are my expectations for the Suns, and because of that, I think they're and I also forgot to mention, I think that coming off the bench for the Phoenix Suns, hold on just one second, let me just go ahead and make sure that I don't misspell his name. because that would be rather embarrassing if I did. I don't think we're gonna see a Bol sighting though. Like maybe we will, maybe we won't. Not entirely sure. But Grayson Allen, I feel like Grayson Allen is also going to be a really important X factor in this game. Not that it really matters, but I do think he is going to be the reason why the Phoenix Suns win by a lot or why they win by a little bit. And I think he's going to end up hitting at the very least 5 3-pointers in this game, and end the game with a respectable 15 points. And again, like this is just my expectations for the scoring between all of these players. They also have an addition with Tyus Jones, who could be a very solid point guard for them going into this game. I have no idea how the starting lineup is going to look like. I don't know if they're going to continue playing Devin Booker at the point guard position, even though I think they should, because he was a very solid guard. Like, he was a very solid point guard in his first ever season being a point guard. So I'd have no problem with him being a point guard once again. But again, that's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But that is all that I really have for my predictions, and that is it for the show. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as I said before, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, a burning question, or just anything you're dying to share. We're all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $sign below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Really helps. And if Super Chat's not really your thing, then that's fine. You could always use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. That's all that I really have to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired.